Hi, my name is Marcus from DM Photography, and in today's video I want to share with you why I like to develop and scan my own analog films. Before we get started, if you are new to the channel, I would like to welcome you. If you're generally interested in topics around analog photography or the Leica M system, be it analog or digital, I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do so, please don't forget to hit that big red button below the video. Your support helps me and the channel a lot. For my regular viewers and subscribers, you are magnificent people. Love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting me and my work. Let's address the elephant in the room straight away: money. So this video will not be about the economics around developing and scanning your own film, meaning I will not go into the costs involved in scanning and developing. The mileage varies a lot and depends on so many factors. This video is about the reasons why I develop and scan my own film. Please stick around, you might be surprised. I structured this video into 3 parts. The first are technical reasons. The second part will be why I think it will benefit you and your photography. And the third one are my personal reasons. Before we get into the 3 technical reasons that I want to cover in today's video, I want to make sure that you understand that nothing that I will say in this video is a direct critique to labs in general. I am just talking about my personal experience with labs and some of the reasons that drove me in developing and scanning my own film. Your experiences might be completely different, or maybe some of the things that you will hear in today's video make you think about the films or the results you got from the labs that you are using. With this out of the way, let's talk about the 3 things or the 3 technical reasons that drove me into developing and scanning my own film. The first one might be a very obvious one and maybe not a so serious one, but for me it was very important at that time, and that was the time between me shooting the film and having to wait for a lab to send me the results. I really didn't like the wait, and my experiences are waiting between 2 days and 2 weeks depending on the lab that I chose, but generally this was reason enough for me to make me curious into developing and scanning my own film and having at least the waiting time under control. So this might not be an issue for you, but for me this was one of these things that I really wanted to have this time under my own control. The second technical reason is a more physical reason. So after shooting around half a year of black and white films, I decided to go into color film. And obviously by the time I was far into developing my own black and white film, but I have never developed color film or color negative film until then, and I had great respect for that process. And so I sent off my first 2 rolls of color film that I shot and was very proud of to a lab. And when I got the results back, I saw horizontal scratches on one of those films that I sent. And I was really shocked because I was so proud of the first color photos that I shot. And when I scanned those negatives and I saw the scratches, I was really disappointed. And again, I don't know exactly what happened in the lab. I tried to talk to them. They were not very forthcoming at the time. And so something might have went wrong either in the handling of the film, the machine, the process. I really don't know it. But what I can say for sure, those kinds of horizontal scratches I have never seen when I developed my own film. So that was something that kind of shocked me. It was something that had nothing to do with waiting time or something. It was the first time I realized that, it's such a delicate process and film can be damaged if not handled properly. And that lab hasn't handled my film properly enough. And then the third reason goes a little bit in that direction. It's also a physical reason, and that is the way how film is developed. So for color negatives, there's a process called C41, and for slide film E6, and these are kind of generic processes, right? So you can throw various different films into the same chemical sauce and they will turn out very fine, other than if you have these physical scratches or something. But with black and white film, the situation is a little bit more complicated. Every type of black and white film needs its own type of processing. Now, there are obviously also some generic chemicals that can be used with all kinds of black and white films. And from my experience, and again, these are my experiences, you might have completely different ones, but the labs that I tried so far, they have a kind of like a very generic set of chemicals for all kinds of black and white films. And it might not matter too much, I don't know, because I am very careful when I develop my black and white film to really have the proper chemicals, proper development times, and so on and so forth. But maybe general chemicals also work quite okay. But one of the films or black and white films that I sent to a lab was an Ilford Ortho Plus. And when I got the results back, and this was, by the way, my first roll of Ilford Ortho Plus, so I had no experiences with this film whatsoever. So I sent the film to the labs because I didn't have time in the evenings after work, and I wanted to get the video out about Ilford Ortho Plus that you might have seen. And when I got the results back, I was really disappointed with the way how the film looked. Now, again, I have not shot Ilford Ortho Plus before, but from what I've seen on the web and on Ilford's website, the films that, or the way how the lab developed that film didn't really look anything like I was expecting. So I delayed the video for you guys and I shot a second roll of film that I developed myself. Took my time, scanned it, looked at the results, and they were worlds apart. So again, lesson learned for me, be very careful, especially with a little bit more special black and white film. Your lab might not be able to handle it the way it was supposed to be handled, right? So with Ortho Plus, again, the lab that I tried, maybe another lab would have handled it correctly. I was very unlucky probably, but again, lesson learned, and it was another shock for me. Waste of film, again, photos I really liked, and yeah, lesson learned. So these are the technical reasons I wanted to talk about. Let me just quickly summarize. One is the waiting time. Again, it might be no issue for you. Second one might be that your lab doesn't handle the film correctly. So there is a risk of scratches or physical damages to your film. And the third one is the chemicals. Unless you know the lab very well, you don't know. You can only guess what kind of chemicals they use. So they might not use the proper chemicals for the film that you're sending in. Just be aware of that. Let's head over to the next section. Let's now talk a little bit about why I believe that developing and scanning your own film will benefit you. I want to split this a little bit between the pure development process and scanning, because some of you might just have the film developed, but you scan the films yourself, and some of you might have your films developed and scanned at labs. So let's talk about first just the pure development process. Like I mentioned in the section before, if you've never developed the film yourself, you don't really know how the film really is if you just use one lab, right? If you use a couple of labs, you will see some differences, and you might say, you know what, maybe I like the processing in this lab more than the process in this lab. But if you have just one lab and you get the films back from the lab, especially again, black and white film, I think with color, this is a more uniform process across the labs, but especially with black and white film, if you have never developed the film yourself, but you only use one lab, you get the results back, you scan the film, you like it or not, you might form an opinion about that film without really to know the potential of it. And this is exactly what happened, or like I explained to you earlier, with my Ilford Ortho Plus. If I would have never developed it myself, I might have a very bad opinion of that film. But because I then developed the film myself, my opinion about the film changed completely, right? So just be aware, if you send off your film, and even if you scan it yourself, to truly understand the physical material, the grain and everything about a film, you might learn a lot if you develop it yourself. And then if you go to the scanning part of things, things get also a little bit more tricky with the color films. I don't know if you know it, but color films, or color negative films, I need to be specific, are interpreted, right? So that film negative is not just like an inversion of some like real life scenery, and it just varies a little bit depending on which film stock you choose, but the colors are also interpreted. right? So you might know that if you're scanning yourself, that you use software like Silverfast or Negative Lab Pro, which has these built-in interpretations or presets for certain films where someone from the development team built in kind of like almost like a Lightroom preset type of thing for those color negative films. And this also happened in the past, you know, when people were in the dark rooms and they were doing color prints, they were adjusting the individual color channels. And the same thing will happen in labs, right? So if you send a film for development and scanning to a lab, they will adjust those color channels to their liking or apply some generic preset to the film stock you send, and that is what you will get back. Now, when you scan the film yourself, like a color film, you will figure out what the challenges with every respective film stock are, right? You will see that some film stock are leaning heavily towards green, for example, or blue, or that there is a problem with, let's say, magenta color cast, and so on and so forth. And you will have to work it, and you will have to understand the film yourself, and you will see, or you will truly start to learn which film you like for which characteristics. Now, again, if you get that scan just back from the lab, you don't know what they did to the film. You don't really know actually how the film looks like. If you only get scans from a specific film type from a lab, maybe you will say, oh, wow, I like it, and it is fair. But you need to also understand many of the people maybe that you follow, for example, here on this platform on YouTube, that have fantastic results sending off certain film types to labs and show you the results, that most of them, they really know what they do, right? They don't just send off the film not knowing what they will get back and show you and talk about the results that they get. They really know and work their film before sending the film off to a lab. Now, just be aware of that, right? Again, you might like the scanning results and you might form an opinion on the results that you get from a specific film type, from a specific lab, but it doesn't generally mean that this is how this specific film is, right? So just understand that. And then with black and white film, in addition to all of this, what comes into play is that they will compensate a little bit during the scanning process over and under exposure, right? Unless you tell them to not do anything. And of course, the reasons are absolutely fair, because especially in the past, when you were ordering prints, the last thing you wanted was like under or overexposed photos. Right. So they kind of like apply some kind of like exposure compensation to have like super bright photos a little bit darker, dark photos a little bit more bright, so that they are more uniform. But if you scan the film yourself, you will see which photos were underexposed. You will see which photos were overexposed. So then one of the benefits of scanning your own film will be that you will truly get to know your light meter. Right, you will learn yourself when, in which situations you typically underexpose or in which situations you overexpose, how your camera reads specific scenes, and what you need to manually compensate in the future before you take more photos with the camera. So so these are the reasons why I think that you can benefit a lot by scanning your film, because you will learn a lot. And now to the personal reasons why I like developing and scanning my own film. So for me personally, developing and scanning my own film is part of the overall analog process. Now I know that some of you might just like shooting the photos and be done with it and then having the film sent off and scanned. But for me personally, shooting the film, taking it out, developing, working with the physical material, and then scanning it and looking at every frame, learning from it, learning from my composition, from the material, the colors, and so on and so forth, is very important. So for me personally, this process really completes the overall experience that I want to get out of analog photography. And then also, I am just generally a curious person. And when analog photography came into my life, I got so excited about the process, and all my curiosity was triggered in me wanting to understand the process. And then last but not least, now having developed film and scanned film for 2 years, I think I'm in a different position to judge the results that I get from a lab. And also what I learned is not to send films to a lab that I haven't worked on personally before, meaning having developed and scanned them before, for the reasons that I was explaining earlier. So now I know what I want to expect from a lab when I get my either just the films developed or also scans, because I know what colors to expect and what to expect from the exposures that I made. So this truly helped me to set my expectation level for certain labs. And yeah, I mean, what I want to get out of a lab, just to let you know, it's not that I develop all my films myself. I still send off films to different labs from time to time for various reasons, by the way. But again, now I am in this position where I know how to choose a lab and to really benefit of a lab. And the benefit that I am looking for is to save me time and effort, right? So that is the main reason. And if I find the right lab with the right process, and I can trust the results, and they are kind of like matching with my expectations, that's the most important. So what I don't want to deal with in the future is just sending off new films to a lab that I never worked with, and then kind of like being surprised or disappointed with the results and knowing what really was going on. So yeah, these are my personal reasons. If you're still watching this video and you got curious in starting developing or scanning your own film, I think all you need to bring to the table is a little bit of time and curiosity. And while you get started, don't forget to have fun. There will be moments of frustration or surprises, I know that, but I promise you it will be really, really cool. You will have moments that you will never forget. As for me, I think my next adventure when it comes to analog photography will have to lead me to the darkroom. I was lucky enough to try it out at the end of 2019, had a lot of fun. And then 2020 came and all the complications. So I don't know when I can start picking up that process, but I will make sure to take you on that journey when the time has come. As for now, this is all for today's video. I'm looking forward to have a discussion in the comment section. Happy to answer all the questions that you have. And yes, please play with the buttons below this video. I'm sure you know what to do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.